There's an old song that says you can make it if you try. And for some people, those are just words, but for me, it's a philosophy because I truly believe that in spite of certain circumstances, and in many instances, in spite of what we go through, we can still make it if we are determined and if we try. Well, as luck would have it, I met somebody about a week ago that epitomizes that expressions. You can make it if you try. Now, this young lady is none other than Miss Michelle Anthony. And I told her we will probably need to talk for 2 weeks, to just kind of tout everything that she's done, how she has addressed obstacles, how she has overcome obstacles, how when presented with obstacles, she did not get disappointed, she got motivated. And she really has a story to tell, not only because of her success in business, but her creating a nonprofit, her spirituality, and her belief in family, and her belief in our future. She made some remarks at a dinner that she sponsored for us in Washington. And she talked about legacy and leaving something for future generations and not being so selfish as it relates to things that we have achieved and have accomplished. So I was just chomping at the bits when she was up talking. I said, I'm gonna have that lady on my show because that's reflective of what I want to do, what I'm trying to do as it relates to our people. Now, before I introduce her any further, I just want to say something. We got to be responsible as a people. We've got an obligation to our people.
Yes.
We've got an obligation to all of those people who died and was hosed
Yes.
and
Yes.
killed down through the years for us to be in a position to have a multinational company like AAI, you know. But so she has this multinational company, but she epitomizes my thinking and what we as successful people, particularly Black folk, I started to say African American, I might even go way back and say color folk. We've got a responsibility. So when she said that, and when she expressed how concerned she is, not only about accomplishing personal material things and selfish things, but also uh, how she feels about the legacy of our people and our family and how she feels a responsibility to give back to the community. I said, I'm gonna see if I am fortunate enough to interview her on my show. How you doing, Miss Michelle?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. It is so wonderful to be here today.
Yes, ma'am. It's wonderful to have you. So let's just go way back and start early on with you and your life, and then we'll get into all of your
Oh,
present
wow.
accomplishments.
Okay. If you insist.
I insist.
Okay, I'm ready.
Go ahead. Just tell us about you.
Okay. Born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama. Actually was in my mother's womb when Dr. King was assassinated. And actually my mother that month, it was like in April. Yeah, it was April. And I wasn't born until July. So it started in the womb with me that I was a fighter because my mother's water broke with she had her personal tragedy during the month of April as well as Dr. King's assassination, and it just took its toll on her during her pregnancy, so her water broke. But
Wow.
I stayed in the womb and I did not come until July.
Wow.
So miraculously I was a dry birth. And so that just always resonates with me, that fighter was in me even in the womb. And so growing up in Montgomery during that era of the early 70s, we were still under the reign and the rule of Mayor Emory Former. And at that time, even though, segregation was supposed to be over, Montgomery was very highly segregated. and we knew our side and they knew their side. Blacks were only on the white side of town to clean and, to service white people. And that's just the truth. So, even though they had taken down the signs and all of that, the whole spirit was still there. It hadn't left. So growing up there was very hard as far as financially. My parents were very, very poor. I grew up in several projects all throughout Montgomery. And so went to bed hungry, didn't have meat,
Wow.
didn't have clothes, everything was hand me down, every single thing. Just the whole poverty thing. Even growing up, didn't have anything positive on TV. For me to grow up to be a CEO, I cannot take credit for this because I never saw one. I didn't even know what one was. So that wasn't a dream of mine, but it was a plan of God for my life. So, despite all that I came through, God had a plan for me. And in his plan for me, as I grew up and went through high school, I watched my siblings. I'm the youngest of 7 children. I'm the baby, and I wear it like a birthmark. So what happened was I would watch all of my siblings as they were growing up, and the out was the military. Each one of my siblings grew up. they, I watched my oldest brother. He had to jump the fence with his bag on his back just to go and walk to basic training. Had no transportation. Just certain things. I walked to school my whole life, whatever. No umbrella, just walked. It just was. And so, but watching my siblings, when each one of them went in the military, when they came back, their lives were different. And I was like, man, man, man. And so being the youngest, I was always able to just watch those that were ahead of me. And as I watched each one of them, I noticed that they never came back. So when my turn came, I left and I went to the Army and I never came back. And it changed my life, exposed me. I'll tell you what happened though to change me before I went in the Army at 13 going on 14 that summer. Jimmy Carter was the president, and he had this program called the CETA, CETA program. And the CETA program, I don't think he was the first president to initiate it, but I know under him, he kept it in place. And each summer they would give one child out of a household that qualified a job. Well, my sister was already 15, I was 13. And some reason, my mom applied for both of us and they chose me. And when they chose me, I was placed down in the Montgomery County Courthouse. And that was my first time being around white people because I had been, growing up in the projects and in the hood. I just wasn't around. We just weren't around them. So I got a chance to see a professional environment. And that's where the birthing and the love of the law came into my life. I turned 14 that summer, and in the courtroom, I met a lady that she was the stenographer at the time. They would call them stenographers. And now they call them court reporters. But at the time I was 14 and I saw this lady sitting at the front of this courtroom, and all I could see from the back, and I would sit there every day on my lunch break. I was just so mesmerized. I would sit there every day on my little lunch break, and I would just see her fingers moving from the back of the courtroom. She never talked, she never did anything, but I just saw her fingers moving. Finally, one day I got the courage to go up and I asked her, ma'am, excuse me, but what are you doing? And when I did that, she explained it to me. And, being an impressionable young girl, she's like, yeah, you have to be able to type 225 words a minute. And we take down everything that's being said, and then we can read it back. And I was just so blown away. So I went back to school for my 9th grade year, and I finally knew what I wanted to be, and that was a stenographer. So every time I would say it, people say, oh, a stenographer. And I'm in the hood saying a stenographer. And and so they were like, what's that? And so I had to explain it every time. But from that summer on, I took every business class, every typing class, everything I could get out of the public school system. I took it because she birthed something in me that summer. And so, but when I got ready to go in the Army, they didn't have stenographers. So I was like, oh, wow. But what they did have was college money and a sign up bonus. And I mean, I'd never had 1,000, less known $4,500. So they were like, we'll give you a sign up bonus and we'll give you $25,000 for college. I was like, so I'll take it. So I went in the army, and from there, my life changed again. Dealing with a lot of the harsh realities of being in the military, being in the army. Other branches may be a little different, but the army, you still had a very dominant male culture where, at that time, women, you know, it was still challenging for women to serve amongst men. And so that was very, very challenging for me as a young girl being placed in that environment. Um, because you had these adult males that all of a sudden now you have a 17-year-old, 18-year-old young girl thrust in the midst of all of these males. And
Wow.
it was very, very much a very heavily harassing type of environment. It really, really was. And nobody prepared me for that. But God is good. I was able to get through that. Got some bumps and bruises along the way, but everything I've gone through, my favorite scripture in the Bible is Romans 8:28. And that says, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God and who are the called according to his purpose. So everything I've gone through in my life, I look for the good in it. And I look for the blessing that came out of every negative situation, because there's always a blessing in there. And so that's how I've lived, gone in the military. After I got out of the military, I was able to go to college, to a business college for court reporting. Well, went to the school, got out, found out that I was going to meet racism there. Met racism at the door. They would not hire any African Americans, especially darker ones. Um,
Wow.
I couldn't get a job. Now I just served my country, did all this other stuff, get out, go to school. I'm first. I was so excited. I was first in my class. I outdid every person who started with me. And I still couldn't get a job. Had all my equipment. My dad bought all my equipment because I'm a daddy's girl too. And so he was big hero. So he made sure his baby had all of her equipment and everything. And I still couldn't get a job because of the color of my skin. And I was like, okay, well, I turned to what I knew, and that was prayer. And I asked God, I said, well, what do I do? I said, I got all this equipment. I've done everything, and I want to be a court reporter. And I just heard in my spirit, reach out to Black attorneys and Christians, tell them what's going on, and somebody's going to open the door. And lo and behold, that's what I did. I'm one of those, I went door to door.
Mm-hmm.
I was so determined. I walked and I physically went and knocked on their doors, and I spoke with them personally to get them to give me a chance. I wanted them to see my face and to see my determination. And I did that. And then the Black Bar Association, I met a Black attorney and he invited me to Black Bar Association. And that was it. Once I went in there, I spoke to them and I brought to their attention, have you noticed you haven't seen any Black female court reporters? And they were like, you know what, you're right. Is it because you guys can't do it? I said, no, it's not because we can't do it. I said it is a fixed system that, if you're not in with the crowd that's controlling this, then you get locked out. And so by the grace of God, they gave me cases, and I started court reporting, and the business started growing. So then all of a sudden, the girls that I had known that had gone to school with me, but had not been able to get a job as well, I went back. And as I was getting too much work, I went and I helped all of them, and I began to hire as many Black court reporters that had gone back to Taco Bell, they had gone back to the other jobs they had before they invested all that money to go to school. And I was able to open the first ever African American owned court reporting firm in Hampton Roads, Virginia. And and that's where Anthony and Associates started. It was because I couldn't get a job. And now God has blessed me to be able to give people a job. and understand and appreciate the value of just wanting that chance, of just wanting to be given an opportunity. So that's what I'm able to do today.
Such a phenomenal story. And then, I wanted to get some background information on Miss Anthony because she moved from there, going, from school and service and, trying to start a business to really expanding and growing. And, it's nothing short of phenomenal, the kind of accomplishments that she has made as an entrepreneur. So let's take this other time, Ms. Ann, and talk about, how you first went into business, how that business grew, basically what kind of business you were doing, and how you have expanded into other kinds of disciplines that's going to make a difference. One thing I want to mention, I don't want to forget it, is that Miss Anthony and I talked about uh, a solar project that we uh, may do here in Macon. So you'll hear more about that, but I'll talk to you more about that, Miss Anthony. So let's move from there, from growing up into the army to scenography to the business world. You got the floor.
Okay, so once the company, once I was able to hire the Black court reporters, that's when I incorporated. And it was like, man, this is getting serious. So I had a grand opening and all of this, and so everything was going well. And then unfortunately, things kind of took a turn for me with my mother passing away and some other personal things that just happened. So I was looking to start over again because it was like, whoa, 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 just a lot happened. And that just really, really just rocked me. So my daughters got accepted to college in Atlanta. And so what I decided to do was, well, let me move and just start over and support the girls because I had twins and let me support the girls. And then, I was like, well, maybe I'll just go into ministry, whatever. I don't know. When I get there, I'll figure it out. And I didn't realize that my ministry is in the marketplace. So I'm thinking, you start following what traditional people start telling you, whatever, but that wasn't the plan for me. So when I got to Atlanta, I had actually terminated the corporation. I was like, I'm just going to walk by faith, and whatever God wants me to do, I'm just going to do it. And then as soon as I got down here, about 2 or 3 months later, I heard the Spirit say, go back and reincorporate that corporation because I'm going to bless that company with government contracts. And you're going to be able to fund the ministry that I put in your heart through government contracts. I'm like, whoa, whoa, so I had never made, that type of money or even thought about that as a court reporter. And so all of a sudden, opportunities started just appearing. And as they began to appear, I began to say, okay, well, I'm a pretty good writer. I've been doing all these transcripts for all these court cases and all this other stuff. So, let me throw my name in the hat. And lo and behold, I started competing for contracts. Now, mind you, at that time, I also was in what was called the 8A program. So some people may not understand or know, but the 8A program is a program under the federal government where certain contracts can be set aside for no competition. And so I signed up because I had a client when I was in Virginia that wanted to just give me all their work. So I got in the 8A program, didn't really know what I had. But when I got to Atlanta, I started meeting people and they were like, well, Michelle, if you're providing this and these court reporters are all around in different cities and different states, then you can provide other things for the federal government. I was like, I can. And so, after I heard that, I started doing some research. And what I realized was my court reporting background kept coming back to bless me. Because when I would be in court cases, I would hear like subject matter experts, right? And it could be whatever it could be an accident, it could be whatever the need was, but they would always go out and get an expert. And so what I realized is if you surround yourself with the expertise, you don't have to have that exact background, but if you get the right experts around you, there's nothing you can't do because now I understand business. You see what I'm saying? You could put me in I don't care. You could put me in the Tesla factory. It doesn't matter because I understand business. I can run anything. So when I started understanding that and leveraging that, that's when I started providing different services for the government. And I think I did maybe around that time was when I did my first international case, wherein I assigned court reporters in Sweden, somewhere 2 or 3 places internationally. And I was like, man, you
Wow.
do things globally too. So, so each little bit I just kept learning and seeing. And then I started getting employees in different states. So I had a contract to provide court reporters nationwide in all these rural towns. So that was my first time providing national services. So I'm like, okay, I keep growing, keep expanding. And then I started bidding on other work that was national or outside of the US. And we started winning that work. And I started establishing offices, establishing teams and managers with that expertise to be able to manage those projects. And so that's kind of how this little court reporter has gone from court reporting to administrative support services to medical support services. We provide nurses, doctors, health information technology, cybersecurity, coders, auditors, anything in the healthcare space. And then most recently, I've had a relationship for about 3 years playing around with renewable energy and the sustainable energies. And now we have a Black energy company. And so it's just like these doors keep opening. And as the doors open, I just always reach back. I always reach back. And I'm always looking to see who can I help, who can I bless. But there's certain things that I look for though. One, you have to be hungry. I don't chase anybody. If you say you want it, I won't have to look for you. You'll find me. You see what I'm saying? I don't double back. I don't do any of that. If you want what I have, you will worry me to death to get it out of me. And when you do, I know you want it. You know what I'm saying? Because I meet so many people and they tell me, oh, Miss Anthony, will you mentor me? Will you this? Will you that? I don't even follow up. I see if you follow up with me.
Yes, ma'am.
I see if
Yes,
you
ma'am.
pursue me.
Yeah.
And that lets me know whether or not you're really serious or you want to waste people's time, because time, I don't have the bandwidth to waste time. So I try to make sure that everything I do, benefits in some type of way, whomever I'm coming into contact with or whatever. There has to be a benefit there.
I was wondering when I was reading your resume and when I was looking at the website and all of the NACIS or whatever those codes are, all those
Next
fields,
codes, next codes.
I said, how in the world does she do all of this and got that kind of outreaching in all of those locations, all these different companies and all of this success? And I think that's heavy what you said is having the knowledge to find somebody who knows what you don't know
Yes,
and hire some experts.
yes.
And then I think part of my problem, frankly, is that, but I'm learning. I'm learning as of today, June, May, whatever the day is, that you've got to reach out and engage with people and individuals and programs and initiatives that you may not be that familiar with, but if they know how to do it, you build that relationship and then you let them do it, but you still make some of the money.
Yeah, but what you have to do is you have to do your research and learn a little, but I don't have to be the master. I don't have to be the master. I need people around me that are the masters. And when you do that, that's what's key, because you want to be able to make sure that they're just not selling you wolf tickets. You want to make
Right.
sure, you know what I'm saying? So there's a due diligence period that I do, but at the same time, I'm learning it on a base level. And there's nothing wrong with being in a room and everybody in that room has more education than you, has more experience than you. There's nothing in the world, because guess what? I was in that room just last week, and guess what? I can still teach you. I can give you a
Yep.
master class. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So they may have their expertise in something that I don't, but what I do know, I know it very, very well. I know it very, very well. And I'm willing to teach it and share it. But again, one of the things we have to do is we have to be willing to learn. But I don't have to master it. I have to know it well enough to make sure that when I obligate myself, that I have the right team around me that can execute. Because my name, I've worked too hard. So I won't just obligate myself and I can't make sure. I got to be able to make sure we can perform. Because the other thing I talked about, if you can remember, I've done a lot and I've lost a lot. And the one thing that I learned, if you cannot sustain, if you cannot maintain, what did you gain?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I noticed that you have gotten, I noticed on your website where you contracted with all of these federal agencies, you know, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, and everybody. So I'm just so happy that our paths cross. And I really appreciate you. And not only that, you've got your son, you bringing your son up and other young people. I mean, giving them responsible positions,
Yes, sir.
you know, in your company. So just in case somebody wants to learn more about your company for informational purposes or otherwise, just give us their contact information for your company, including the website.
The website is, the main website is aai.online.us. That's where we do all of our federal work. And then the recent energy company is andweleenergy.com, named after my son, Andwele, ANDWELE energy.com.
Okay, so if in fact they wanted to try to reach out in one way or the other, they can do that from the website.
Yes, sir. There's the information emails that'll come to my team. And yes, so that
Okay.
it can be, sorted to the right person. Because they can't just
Okay.
me directly.
I
Because
know
they don't have
that.
the bandwidth. But I
I
have
can,
enough team members, that will make
yeah,
sure that if I'm needed, you can reach me. Now you have my direct info.
yeah, I do.
So,
I do.
yes, sir.
Well, this is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham, having interviewed the phenomenal Miss Michelle Anthony, the owner of AAI Online, AAI Company, and her website is
Yes, sir.
AAIonline.com. And, this is a story that we need to share. This is a story we need to show our young people. This is a story we need to tell our young people about because it's our responsibility now more than ever, particularly as Black folk, now more than ever. We got to begin to understand that we got to uplift ourselves.
Yes, sir.
All of us assume the responsibility of uplifting our community, our race, and our people, our young people in particular, and getting involved in the community. She didn't tell you about, she got the nonprofit, No One Left Behind.
Yes.
She started her own nonprofit out of her own money because she didn't want to be obligated to nobody
What it is.
that she could do whatever she wants to
Yes.
do. I'm
Yes.
so honored and so pleased and so thankful that you have taken the time out of your very, very busy schedule. This is a call to action. I'm your host, Alex Habersham. Have a great day.
www.makingblackpages.com